this, in terms of like a theoretical framework for thinking about meaning, was the most important thing that I did. And so I was writing this book about mystery illness. I was writing the Ladies' Handbook for a Mysterious Illness. I couldn't understand why they felt wrong to me. And when I became so sick in 2013, I was thinking through, because I was like, well, that manuscript is not going to work, and I was trying to think through why. And I was thinking about how I had kind of modeled sort of the narrative arc on the hero's journey, which is, I love Joseph Campbell, and I love thinking about, well, how do stories actually work? Because they don't just come out of nowhere. There's often a structure that is really resonant for, for people across cultures. That's what the hero's journey is. It's like he went through all these different cultures and was like, actually, if you look at this story from this culture and this story from this culture that are completely different, the structure of that story is actually exactly the same. And you see it in like every Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or any superhero story. It's all the same origin story and sort of arc. And I was thinking about that and about why that wasn't working for me. And it became like really obvious. It was because I couldn't complete the journey. I could not slay the dragon. I could not win. There was no way to win, because the harder that I tried, and I did so much stuff to try to get better. This story that I've been telling about myself, I am a failure of this story. And this is why it feels so bad. And so I was just lying in bed. This is for months and months. And so I just had a lot of time to think. And so I was like, well, maybe there's like another story, but I don't know what it is. And I thought about that for a long time. And then just one day I was like, well, I wonder if there's a heroine's journey. And so I just like Google it, and it comes up, and there's like a bunch of books, but there's this one called The Heroine's Journey. And I get it and I read it, and I literally like underlined like every single line.
I love it when that happens. It's like, basically the whole book is like filled with.
Yeah, I was like, let's just bold and underline the whole thing. And so what the heroine's journey is instead of it being this sort of difficult but grand journey, like there and back to slay the dragon and save the world, it's basically the inverse of this. It is the journey into hell, and it is the story of Persephone and the story of Inanna, and there's all these, just as the hero's journey, there's basically this story of the descent into hell exists in all cultures. And I start reading about this. I was like, the journey into hell, that's me.
That's my story.
Yeah. But of course that's not enough. That would be like, it's not enough for it to just be like, oh, I'm in hell and this story is in hell. The actual story is of Persephone. She gets abducted into hell. It's against her will. It's not her fault. Basically, in the end, she eats some food from the underworld, and this means that she's released to the upper world and gets to come back to the upper world, and it comes back to light. She's the goddess of spring, because what happened when she got abducted is her mother killed all the crops in the upper world, and this is why Zeus brokers a deal with Hades to bring her back to the upper world so that winter can be over and that the crops can come back. But then she becomes this cyclical goddess, where she is in the upper world part of the time and in the underworld part of the time. But she also becomes a guide for other souls as they descend into the underworld when they've died. And then there's this sort of journey through hell where they basically have to sort through, are they ready to go on to heaven? Do they have to return to the upper world to do more work? But it's this journey into the darkness, and she becomes their guide. And it's the same thing you see in the Inferno, where Dante descends into hell, but he has a guide, Virgil, and then Beatrice. And this is a concept you see in so many different stories. And it is exactly the same thing that I see in the journey of like everybody in your summit that has been abducted into hell, but then goes on this sort of quest of learning. And the way that the heroine's journey is constructed, there's the descent, and then there's the search, and then there's the return. And this is something that you see, and this happens over and over and over again. And this is something that you see a lot of in the chronic illness world, is there's the descent into hell, But then you end up over time learning an enormous amount, and usually in repeated cycles through the underworld, kind of over and over. And what so frequently happens is that when people get better, and even if they don't, even if they get somewhat better, they start to become the guide through hell to help the new, like you, like start to help other people make their way through the darkness, because the gift that they have now is not like fighting and slaying dragons. It's knowledge, and it's also being able to see in the dark.